Hi, both. Thanks for joining us today on our Business Gurus channel, where we will be discussing key business topics to help students grasp the most important elements of their course in preparation for their exams and future career. Let's get started.
Every successful business, I mean, whether it's trying to scale up locally or it's a big name just trying to stay ahead, eventually faces this really fundamental question: how do you grow?
Yeah. And maybe more importantly, how fast can you actually afford to grow? It's a huge strategic dilemma.
These choices really set the course, don't they, for like the company's whole future and its place in the market?
Absolutely. And that's what we're diving deep into today. We're looking at the two main ways businesses scale up. You, the listener, want to get up to speed fast. And well, this is where managers feel that real tension.
Okay, right. Do they stick with what they know, grow steadily from the inside, or do they, take a leap and try to expand fast externally?
Exactly. We're looking at what our sources call organic growth versus inorganic growth.
And these aren't just dry business terms, are they? They're more like, well, blueprints for how a company actually works, its culture.
Precisely. It's about building carefully from what you've got versus, say, buying growth quickly from outside. And that decision impacts, well, pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Money, morale, market position, the lot,
So let's start with that first pass, the more controlled one, organic growth,
also known as internal growth, yeah.
right? Our sources say this is when a company uses its own steam, basically, its own profits, its own people, its tech to get bigger. It feels, I don't know, safer.
It definitely offers more stability. And the big word here, the key advantage is control.
Ah.
You're steering the ship, making all the calls. You decide on the next hire, the next product tweak, which market to test out. It's all internal.
And that level of control, that's huge, isn't it? Especially if you're like a founder. You keep your vision pure, your company culture intact.
Exactly. You're not suddenly dealing with a whole new division that works completely differently.
Right. Avoids that morning after shock.
And that naturally leads to the second big plus, sustainable growth. Because you're building on your existing strengths, the growth tends to stick. It's durable.
So if you make great widgets, you reinvest the widget profits into making, well, even better widgets.
Basically, yeah, it's a solid reinforcing cycle.
And that steady improvement, that must help with keeping customers happy too, right? Customer loyalty?
Definitely. You're constantly refining things. Maybe the app gets easier to use. Maybe customer service gets quicker. All that builds trust. Customers see you evolving reliably.
Okay, so that sounds pretty good. Stable, controlled, loyal customers.
Does sound idyllic, but there's always a but, isn't there? If it's so great, why doesn't everyone just stick to this?
Okay, here come the trade-offs. What's the catch?
Well, the biggest one, time. It's just slow, really slow growth.
Ah.
You might be super stable, rock solid, but you could completely miss the boat on a new market or a tech shift because you're just, waiting for your internal gears to turn.
The world moves faster than the internal memo sometimes.
You got it. And that slowness, it's tied directly to the next problem, limited resources.
Right, you can only grow as fast as your current bank balance and headcount allow.
Exactly. You can't just magic up 50 experts for a new project tomorrow. You've got to find them, train them, pay for them, all from what you're making right now.
So slow pace, limited resources. What's the big danger there?
Competition. This is often the killer. While you're growing organically, maybe a steady 5% a year, feeling good about it,
Uh-huh.
a competitor might just go out and buy a tech company, merge with a rival, and suddenly jump 50% in size overnight.
Wow. Okay.
And they just hoover up market share that you're patiently trying to earn. So sometimes that stability, it can actually look a lot like stagnation if you're not careful.
Okay, so that brings us neatly to the other side of the coin, the faster path, inorganic growth.
Right, external growth.
Yeah.
This is where things get potentially explosive.
Yeah, our sources talk about mergers and acquisitions, M&A, basically joining forces with or buying out another company, the financial fast lane.
It really is the shortcut. And the number one benefit is obvious.
Yeah.
Faster growth, way faster.
Like overnight.
Pretty much. The day the deal is done, boom. You instantly have their customers, their products, maybe access to whole new countries. You've basically bought yourself years of development work.
Can often, the goal is speed to grab a bigger market share, right?
Absolutely. You merge with a rival, suddenly there's one less competitor. The combined company can dominate the market much more quickly, maybe even start setting prices or standards.
Plus, you get all their stuff, their expertise, more resources and skills.
Exactly. Think about, say, a software firm buying a hardware maker. Instantly, they get patents, factories, Engineers who know how to build things, establish ways to sell those things.
Stuff that would take them ages and a lot of money to build themselves.
For sure. And that brings us to a really key financial point. This speed and scale, it often leads to lower average costs.
How does that work?
Well, you can buy supplies in much bigger batches, get better deals. Or you share overheads. Maybe you only need one HQ, not two. One IT system.
Right, cutting out the duplication.
Precisely. And our sources highlight this powerful economic idea. Economies of scale. Getting bigger makes things cheaper per unit.
And that financial boost, the economies of scale, that must be a massive driver for these big M&A deals we read about.
It often is. Speed, market share, cost savings.
Yeah.
It's a compelling package.
So why would anyone hesitate then, if the upside is so dramatic?
Because the risks are just as dramatic.
Yeah.
Inorganic growth can be incredibly volatile. It can go wrong, spectacularly wrong.
Okay, let's unpack the dark side then. What's the first major hurdle?
It's very expensive, just incredibly costly. Buying another company, especially a successful one, means paying a big premium.
And getting that cash isn't easy.
Not at all. You often need serious external finance, big loans, maybe issuing more shares if you're a public limited company, a PLC.
Right, and that whole source of finance piece, dealing with banks or shareholders, adds layers of complexity and risk that you just don't have with internal growth. You're suddenly exposed.
You are.
Yeah.
But honestly, that financial risk often seems small compared to the internal nightmare of clashing cultures.
The people problem.
This is the one. Seriously, this sinks so many mergers.
Yeah.
You take two companies with totally different ways of working, different values, different communication styles, and you shove them together. It breeds immediate friction, bad teamwork, arguments, people actively undermining each other because they just fundamentally disagree on how to do the job. It can paralyze the whole operation.
And that friction, it's not just theoretical, is it? It causes real pain, especially with job losses.
Sadly, yes. Mergers almost always mean redundancies. You don't need two finance teams, two marketing heads for the same region.
Okay.
And cutting jobs, even if necessary on paper, creates massive anxiety. It tanks morale, even for the people who stay. Productivity just plummets.
Yeah, so you've got cost, culture clashes, job losses, anything else.
Yeah, there's the simple fact that the new, bigger company could become much harder to manage.
Too big, too fast.
Exactly. The leadership team that was great at running a 500-person shop might be totally out of their depth trying to oversee a 5,000-person global giant with clunky, mismatched systems. You lose that tight grip you had with organic growth.
And customer service probably suffers then too.
Often, yeah. It gets harder to keep things consistent when everything's suddenly so spread out and complex. So what's really fascinating when you step back is the choice here, organic versus inorganic. It's fundamentally a trade-off, isn't it?
How so?
You're basically choosing between keeping tight control and accepting slower progress versus grabbing speed and scale, but taking on huge integration risks and potentially massive cost.
Right. Predictability and maybe stronger loyalty on one side versus sheer velocity and market dominance on the other. So for you listening, the question becomes, what's the bigger priority?
And I see how the downsides really stack up differently. Inorganic growth brings all this management complexity, these really difficult human costs, the culture clashes, the job cuts. Organic growth tends to avoid the worst of that because it's slow. The complexity grows bit by bit. The culture evolves with it. You build the house and the rules for living in it at the same time, sort of.
So when a company goes the external route, they're essentially placing a bet.
A big bet.
They're betting that the quick wins, the economies of scale, the bigger market share will be worth more than the guaranteed pain and cost of trying to smash two different organizations together.
Exactly. It's a massive gamble on execution, on integration. And success often doesn't even hinge on the CEO signing the deal.
No. Who then?
It's the mid-level managers, the IT folks, the HR teams who actually have to make two different payroll systems talk to each other or figure out whose employee handbook wins. That's the really hard part.
Yeah, that makes sense. We see the headlines about the billions changing hands, but the real make or break stuff happens in those messy integration meetings afterwards, that human element.
And connecting this to the bigger picture, that financial piece we mentioned, the source of finance, the sheer cost that's often the ultimate gatekeepers for inorganic growth.
Even if the strategic logic seems sound.
Yeah, you might desperately need the scale or the tech that an acquisition offers, but if you can't secure the funding, or if the debt burden looks crippling, well, the decision gets made for you. You just can't afford the risk, even before you get to the cultural headaches.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive. really clarifying the two core paths for scaling a business.
That steady, controlled internal growth versus the rapid but complex and risky external path.
And highlighting those really distinct sets of trade-offs each one involves.
And remember, whether a company grows fast or slow, success always comes down to how well the leaders anticipate and manage the risks that come with that growth.
So, a final thought for you. The next time you read about some huge corporate merger or acquisition hitting the news, look past the share price jump for a second. Ask yourself, which of those hidden downsides, we talked about the clashing cultures, the upfront costs and debt, the inevitable job losses, which one do you think will be the hardest for that company's management to actually overcome? Because often it's those human and operational challenges long after the deal is signed that really determine if it all works out.
Thanks to both of you for joining us today. You've been listening to the Business Gurus. Let's now hand it over to you. What further questions do you have based on what we've discussed so far? Leave a comment and we'll get back to you right away. If you haven't already, hit that follow for more business tips.